starts another drive. Namdar blocks it. Julie B with 10 seconds. Kicks it downfield. Wojciechowski down the left boards. A shot is wide. It's off the end wall. The San Diego Sockers have won the MISL championship. A miraculous victory here tonight. Losing 2 straight in Baltimore. The final score, the Sockers 3, the Blast 1. It's all over. This is the MISL Championship Series.
Okay, I have a question that I'm really curious about. This is something I don't know very much about, which is from 83 to 84, the 83-84 season, the Sockers who had gone from the NASL to the MISL went back to the NASL for one more season, one last season, and they won the indoor championship that year, but it was a much different and it seems like much ricketier league in terms of its overall stability compared to where the MISL was at that time. Do you have any insight, Alan, as to what was behind the decision-making to jump leagues again?
Well, I don't have any inside information or anything. I just I'm sure that they, the NASL was probably a little worried about how popular the MISL is becoming.
Yeah.
And that they wanted some of their key players to get back into the NASL game because of the fact that MISL was getting, drawing the crowds, doing such a good job there. But us as players, you just go where you play when they tell you. So any kind of inside information, I really wasn't know anything much about that.
No, more like in terms of what you were hearing at the time, as opposed to what the real story was. I'm just wondering, in terms of, you were in this incredibly successful league that had teams drawing 18,000 and superstars, and even at that time a national cable contract with USA Network. To go back to NASL, which when I was looking it up, I think had 7 teams.
7.
Yeah.
Yep, 7 teams.
In that one year. So, I mean, that of the 10 championships, that's the one that kind of sticks out to me as like, whoa. I mean, Baltimore was probably thrilled. They got to win the MISL title that year when the Sockers were somewhere else. But for you guys, I mean, did it feel like a lesser league when you were there? I guess that's the question I'm asking.
Oh, there's no question as far as, the differences between the two a lot of ways is, in the beginning, the NASL players and things, a lot more technical and skillful, and you had to say, quote unquote, better players playing in that. And then the MISL came along, and they started drawing some of those NASL players to play. One of the first ones was with Shep Messing, outdoor superstar with Cosmos and things. He went ahead and changed over. And then a lot of other very good players in the NSL decided to play in the MISL. And that league started getting really, really very competitive and incredibly good. Now, 83, 84 comes along, and I really think the NASL, the management, the owners of them, they were afraid of what was happening in the MISL. MISL was getting too popular, and that they wanted I think it was San Diego, Chicago, San Jose, went back into, and the Cosmos, they basically forced us, if we wanted to play indoor, to go and play there. And that's the reason why I think we went there. That league, it was only a 7-man league. They didn't take it as serious as the MISL teams did, and I'm not saying that it was a lesser, championship or anything like that, but I have to agree with what you're saying, that it didn't seem, to be a big deal. I mean, you had your, the playoffs was a 1-game deal to get, and then the championship round was a 3 out of 5. Or it was a 1 round where you and then your champion, you only went from one round to the championship game, and
Yeah.
they only played. We swept them. The Cosmos, and they were. When you think about the Cosmos, you think about a big time, incredibly strong team. They didn't have a lot of their players playing for them, and they were, pretty good, but not the way you think a Cosmo team should be. So fortunately, we won that one, and then went back into the MISL.
Absolutely. Quick sidebar before we progress the story to the next chapter. One of the things that it seems to be was an Achilles heel eventually for MISL, and has been for indoor soccer throughout its history, is that it's never truly penetrated the major markets, whereas places such as San Diego, Kansas City, Milwaukee, Dallas, have been very successful. New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, these have not been places where there has been great historic continuity. And it's funny in that, of course, the Arrows won the first 4 MISL championships. If you'd ever think there'd be a great way to have a rock solid franchise, it would be to go 4 titles in 4 years, I would think. But nonetheless, that was a team that only got so far, into the early 80s before folding. Same as you mentioned with the New York Cosmos. They tried again. It bombed again. And I wonder if it's just, if the market pressures that we face in modern day in arena soccer, if those were weighted more in a place like New York, Chicago, LA back then than they were in other places.
Well, I think a big thing was a huge deal would be with all those big markets and stuff. They have so many different things going on with different teams, leagues. There's a lot of different opportunities for the fan to spend their buck in. But the big one is and I think one of the reasons why the MSL struggle was at the end was that they had a problem with the television. Yes, the U.S. The cable league there, but that was really the only one they had, and I wish that they had continued with that. But a lot of there's ownership. I don't think we're willing to at that particular time to put in the money to have the a TV package and and I wish that they did. I think the USA did it for nothing in the first year or whatever, and they were the only media outlet that really covered the league, and league eventually died out when USA decided not to continue to do it, and I really think that it would have been wonderful if we could have got more attention there. Like nowadays, there's so many different media outlets. I mean, there's that they have to advance the product,
Right.
and the product is so big and strong right now. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. But the larger markets, it's at that time it was not noted as a major sport.
Yeah. And also
except in a few areas,
Right.
few different marketplaces.
And those were places that weren't historically great TV markets. And I think that,
right.
That's something we talked about Legend Series number 3 with Randy Hahn as being one of the crippling market forces against Major Indoor Soccer League was
right.
that where it was the most popular, those were places where national TV executives would look and go, just shrug, like Tacoma, Milwaukee, San Diego, Kansas City, we're
right.
good, guys. We don't really need, we don't need your help there,
right.
And so that was part, I think, of that issue, why there was a lot of regional, there was some good regional coverage, but there really wasn't that national coverage that and that wound up being a bugaboo. But that's a little down the road. Returning to my Alan Mayer track here,
Right.
as I got you off into league pundit for a second. 1984-85, a very fascinating year in that there was a Las Vegas casino magnate who decided he was going to jump into MISL, and baby,
Yep.
he was going to jump in big. He had the Thomas and Mack Center, beautiful new arena, and he was going to build this team out of scratch, and he was going to start by making one of the two most famous trades in soccer's history, with yourself, Martin Donnelly, and Julie V all being traded to Las Vegas, where for 10 games, you would be player head coach.
Right.
So
Yeah,
how did this all happen? Explain it to me, Alan.
Well, I mean, it's hard. It's hard actually to explain, but it's very interesting in the respect that we had we came off the 82-83 winning the championship, and at that particular time, then Bob Bell came in and we renegotiated contracts like with Julie and I and a few others, and we went to the 83-84 season. We win that we win that, and now they want to. Las Vegas wants to make a big spill, so they went ahead and for quite a bit of money, they bought Julie, myself, Weechie, Donley, and another Jerry O'Kane for a considerable amount of money. Okay, so this I think that it was the best trade that San Diego's ever made, and here's the reason why. And I'm still waiting for like Sean Bowers or Phil or one of them to go into the cupboard and pull out all the rings that they won from like 85 to 90, whatever, because they used the money that they got for us, and they went ahead and they got a fellow named Steve Jungle, who's Lord of all indoors, absolutely incredible. We talked about Bronco Segota, who has the hardest shot they've ever seen and a great goal scorer. They got Zoli the goalie. They got that next year. So you had Fernando Clavillo.
Yeah.
They got him there. So you're talking 4 Hall of Fame players who played for the Sockers for many years after that, won many championships, and also George Katakalidis was in on that the trade base or the buying spree that they had. So they used all the money they got from us and put it there, which was wonderful for the Sockers franchise. So I feel that we feel good about that we helped the franchise later on. But how that came about was that we just got a call one time, and I still had 3 years left on my contract with San Diego, and they asked, would you be interested in coming and be a head coach and player of the team? And interesting enough is that I just bought a new house at Scripps Ranch, and I lived in it for one day and then got this call. So the guy said, would you come on up and talk to us about it? And so I asked Bob Bell, can I go up there? And they said, yes. So we go up there. I go up there and I talk to them. They were telling me about that they want to start a new team. Just as you said, Thomas and Mack Arena, they're going to go out and make some try to get some good players in it. So it was and then here's your contract, and it was like I loved the San Diego. It was a good contract, but man, they came back and they I'm sure Julie has said on some of your shows what kind of money they were throwing out. So it worked. I went up with the idea that I was just going to be nice and just listen and then just have a holiday for 2 days there. And it turned out that after the meeting with the owner, Boris and Earl Cohen, I came back. I got on the phone. My wife is in New York at the time, and I called her up and I said, "Hey, honey, we're moving." And I mean, it was just just such a great opportunity. It was to play and to coach, and it was for an 8-year period, and so and it was kind of exciting in the fact that, everybody, that wants to try coaching out as well, but I still had some time left in my career, so I could do both of them. Turns out, man, coaching is not what it's made out to be. We put together a really good team. I mean, we got, you're talking Julie Weechie, Marty, you're talking about Chico Borja, you're talking about Helmut Dudek, Godfrey Ingram, lots of different names that came in. Another good goalkeeper, Keith Van Aaron. And so we played, and it didn't work out exactly the way we had hoped it, and ended up, folding in a year.
And yet, you guys were a good team, though. I mean, you mentioned it. You had a bunch of great players. Once you were allowed to just be keeper, you had a really good year again. The coach that came in was the other greatest head coach in the history of the sport,
right.
Popovic. And he brought in a lot of his old arrows. I went and looked at that roster, and there was a heavy arrows influence to that roster. I mean, it seems like, well, I wonder this. You guys lost the round before you would have played the Sockers. You got upset in the playoffs. Was there any chance that if you guys made a big run, if you had gotten to San Diego, beaten San Diego, that maybe the franchise had a chance? Or was it so top-heavy the way it was set up that it was going to collapse in a year no matter what?
Well, I think they went out and spent a lot of money, and it was top-heavy. Had we beat we lost the Strikers in that first round. Had we beat them, and then let's just say we won the championship, I got to think we probably might have stayed around another year or so. But you never know. You never know. But it turned out that there's a few, maybe some, I'm not going to say shady things that went whatever, but a few things that were not under our control, and they decided to pack it in after 1 year, and everybody went on their own from there. And fortunately for San Diego, Julie came back and helped out with the great other players that they had. And although I loved the experience of being a coach and a player, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. I mean, to be a player coach is very tough, especially in those days. Now, a lot of the MASL guys do have a lot. We have several player coaches. I think it has to do with the economics of the game as well. But at that time, I really didn't know anybody else who did it besides Pete Rose in the baseball. And it was murder. I lasted 10 games, and it was a matter of working for 24 hours a day. You were working, worrying about players and players' families and training and this and that. So when they relieved me of my duties, it was like the greatest thing in the world. I could just go back and be a player and not have to worry about doing any of the other deals. We did have a good team, and I think we could have done with a few different breaks here and there. We could have done better, but it is what it is, and we went on from there. And I although it was a tough experience, I loved it and learned from it, and wouldn't trade it for anything actually. And then it went on from there. We like Julie went back into San Diego, and I moved on to the Kansas City Comets, and have been here ever since then.
I was just going to say to what wound up kind of being your final resting place professionally, which is Kansas City, Missouri, and playing for the Comets. When we did, and we brought it up before, when we did Best of SD versus KC, we got to see some of these incredible matchups. Was it extra special to play the Sockers after being a part of the birth and the growth of the Sockers? Whenever you had those chances to meet up with those heyday teams of the mid-late 80s, was that extra special for you?
Oh, no question. Everybody's going to say, hey, no, it's just another game and it's this and that. But I think anytime you play and you have your heart and soul into a franchise, and then go back and play there, especially at San Diego with the arena, it was very, very special. I absolutely loved it. I looked forward to it. It was a great experience. And it was it was a tough one too, because I mean, obviously you're playing against some of the best players in the league, and playing in a stadium, as I mentioned earlier, that you were basically starting a game at 2-0 down because the fans were so good. But we had a lot of good games there, but it was especially special to play them. And then it was especially, you know, if we were lucky enough, we were a few times to win a few games there. It was nice to win there, only because also, you know, you're in it to win it, so you want to play to win. But it was a really special place for me for those times. So I really enjoyed coming back and playing against them.
There were also some incredible rivalries in the Midwest for the MISL, whether it was, of course, Kansas City, St. Louis, or whether it was the Wichita Wings. You know, the Sidekicks, when they came on later, could be considered part of that corridor, so to speak. Which of those kind of classic rivalry battles did you sink your teeth into the most?
Well, I guess it depends upon when I was with, depending upon what team I was playing for.
Well, when you're with Kansas City, I mean.
With San Diego, I think the biggest rivalries we had there were really, you know, the Steamers were big because they were very good. The Comets were pretty good, so that was a pretty good one. In Dallas, so I didn't really feel there was a major rivalry there. That came more later on when I left. When I came to Kansas City, the number one rival obviously was St. Louis because of the proximity, and then Wichita. And I guess when I played with San Diego, I guess Wichita could have been the biggest, because they gave us, we had some really good games against each other. But with Kansas City, it's definitely St. Louis and Wichita.
So many fun times, so many games I've had a chance to go and watch over time. You retired in 1989. What did you feel you had given it all as an athlete at that point? What led to your decision to retire then?
Oh, I think the big thing is, you know, I played 18 years. We were, the league at that time was going down a little bit in the respect that the players' budgets were getting hacked. You know, we had to take 30% pay cuts one time, 20%, before you knew it. And I also lost the desire to compete as much as I had before. I mean, I hated people. When I played against people, I hated them. And then after the game, I absolutely loved, you know, they were nice. I was okay. But I didn't like the teams. And I found towards the end there that I started actually enjoying the players on the field, which on both teams. And it was like, Alan, you don't want to do this, you know? I can remember I never liked pre-game stuff. Like when we went with Comets playing against the Sockers, and pre-game stuff, it's crazy and wild. Like earlier on in the mid with Kansas City, I would go ahead and you block that all out. But the last few times I was there, it was like, oh man, take this in and enjoy the atmosphere and enjoy the game a little bit more. So I started enjoying it a little bit more, and probably lost a little bit of the, you know, killer instinct I had in myself. And so I think that I knew that it was getting time, but the big thing was the financial end of it, where it was dipping on it. And I knew I'd always prepared myself for you know, a life after soccer. Through my, you know, last few years I was playing. I was a bank. I went in the real estate market. I did mortgages, selling real estate and things. Went to some stockbroker places, and just started learning what the real world's like. And then at that particular time, in '89, my contract ended here, and it was like an opportunity to go to a few different areas, but it was, you have to go pick up the family, go there, and for, you know, your money minus 30%, whatever. So it wasn't, it wasn't worth making a move. So I said, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to, because I liked it. And I'm going to try to get involved in a business and try to build myself up, because you have to really, work for a living, where, playing was just, you played for a living. That was just all fun and games, basically. But now it's, wife and 3 kids, and you got to take care of things. And so I went in and went in the insurance business, and as a sales rep and manager, and ended up there 23 years and stopped and retired from there. And be honest with you, when I finished retiring in '89, I never went back to it. I didn't go to a soccer game until Ron Newman came back and coached in the MLS.
Which is exactly what I was just going to ask you about, because that's right. An amazing reunion. If I think about somebody's second act, so to speak, and
right.
to have been coached by the great Ron Newman in the sport, and see him revolutionize the indoor game as you had taken to it, to then take it to the next evolution of your life, where you're coaching under him, you're working with him right. for this nascent outdoor league, something that, of course, if it had existed when you were playing, I mean, the NASL kind of was that, but it just never right. had the foothold that MLS wound up having. What was that experience like, being part of the birth of something?
Oh, it was great, and it was it was like almost when I played, my career was over. The book closes, and then I went into another profession, and that was a real job in insurance, and then was in that for a little bit, and then Ron comes to town, and we go out, and you got to understand, I got along great with Ron, a great friend, and also his family, and his wife Olive and my wife Kathy were very good friends, and Guy and I are great friends, and it was just a wonderful situation. So when he came to town, he called me up and said, Alan, you come for lunch. And so we went out to lunch, and he started telling me about this new league coming into town, and is there any interest in being an assistant coach, is doing the goalkeepers only, because Guy handled the other assistant, the main assistant, and Guy and Ron worked tremendous together, putting together teams and working. So those two were the main things. And he asked me if I wanted just a goalkeeper, and I said, Ron, I can't do it because of I have a profession now that I'm working, and we worked out where, well, hey, can you just come for 3 times a week? And it was like, oh, I could do that. I could do, a few hours a day and 3. And of course, it turned out to be a little bit more than three times. But so I only worked a little. I was a part-time assistant and enjoyed every single minute of it. And working with Ron and Guy was, very special. I mean, I definitely wouldn't have gone back if it wasn't for those guys. And he put together a hell of a good team. And that lasted for about 3 years here. And they make a change, and then I left as well, because new guy coming in wanted somebody full time, and I didn't want to. I couldn't do it full time because I was doing my insurance business. So being around Ron and the stories he tells, and God dang, and he's just a funny dude, and he puts together a great team. So, excuse me.
I watched.
So it worked out really well.
I watched these interviews with Ron Newman, and we've talked about how he was a riverboat gambler. He was a tactician, unparalleled in terms of being an innovator in the indoor sport. But I'm also very much taken by his calm, which of course we attribute to be a key leadership attribute for coaches. But just hearing him, whether it was in a first quarter or third quarter interview, he seemed like somebody who always had a grip on the pulse of his club and the game, to not overreact. Would you agree with that? That he was somebody that instilled confidence through his demeanor and his behavior?
Well, there's no question about it. I mean, to me, he's been the GOAT, and I can only talk to a personal, deal and respect. Ron, he knew how to handle, he was very good talent to get players, and he knew how to handle them. And he used comedy as a big way of getting together with the players. But for me personally, he was one of the first. He allowed me not to, as long as I was playing, I would go ahead and be able to. I didn't have to train in goal, because when I trained in goal in practice, I ended up getting injured all the time. I mean, I missed all the games I missed have been were mostly because I got injured in practice. So he said, no, you can just you play the game and you can just play on the field and run around and things. That took a lot of guts to do. So I attributed him, excuse me, and that was in the championship series where he allowed me to play and then relax during the practice type deal. And it takes a special coach to do that.
So Alan, amazing that you were able to continue to be connected to the sport of indoor soccer and the Kansas City Comets as you've been serving for the last several years as helping with the goalkeeping, coming in as a goalkeeping coach and working through these guys. And as a result of that, I wanted to ask you about Danny Waltman, because you obviously got the chance to—
Nice topic.
Yeah, you got the chance to coach him. You got to coach him in his prime. You got to coach him at the height of his athleticism. And I've got to think, having watched Danny throughout his career and then getting the chance to watch you on old tapes, that if there's one guy who might remind you a little bit of yourself— now, he had the flowing hair. He hasn't put the helmet over it. Right. You both had the flowing hair. But in terms of the athleticism, I don't know if you ever tried to run up the wall and do a backflip, but just in terms of his aggressiveness and the way he plays, how much of Danny reminded you of you?
Oh, first of all, I'll tell you, Danny, man, he is an awesome guy. I absolutely love the dude. I mean, he's a very good goalkeeper. But great. He's a tremendous professional. But I would say, because he's a very, as I say, super player, but more importantly, he's a great person. He's an unbelievable person. Tremendous professional and respected. He was always the first guy in the game. And these are some of the things that I had too, that I pride myself in. You're first in practice, last to leave. He was very good. Probably at all my playing career, 18 years, and all my coaching, he's probably one of the very, very best, if not the top guy, as far as locker room person was concerned. I mean, he was a good person to have around in the locker room, but more importantly, a tremendous professional. Where first in, last out. He would go ahead and he would go ahead and train hard. He would go ahead and he played injured. He was more importantly, he was just a person that you have to respect, because he was his own biggest critic. He owned his game, which means when he doesn't play, he didn't play well, he'd tell you. He said, hey, sorry guys, it's my fault. And I like that. And I was very similar to that. I never thought he was big. He never thinks he's bigger than the game. I never thought I was bigger than the game. One thing that he did a whole lot better was he was very an acrobatic type. He can move around. His flexibility was a whole lot better. But in a lot of things, I did see him, and maybe subconsciously, maybe that's why I liked him so much, and I appreciate you putting that. Seeing that maybe his style fluid was my style too, but because I'll take that as an honor, just because of the type of guy, professional and person he is. Just love the dude to death. But he's not the only guy. I mean, we had some other good players, good goalkeepers here too, and one of them in particular that I really think is awesome and really liked is a guy playing for you guys right now, Boris.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, tell me how they differed, Boris, because I've spoken to Boris about his time in Kansas City.
right.
We did an interview, earlier in the late spring, early summer, where we talked about that. He was very candid, Alan, in terms of saying he felt he was coming out of MLS
Right.
to MISL at that time. And he said he didn't think he was the greatest teammate. When he first showed up, he thought he was maybe a little bit big in his own head. He credits Danny for being a guy who really grounded him and brought him back to earth. And now, I mean, out here in the West, we get the opportunity to see Boris versus Danny. We've seen some of the greatest goalkeeping of the last 2-3 years be when those guys go head to head and are kind of one-upping each other on incredible saves. So what was that like helping guide Boris through that transition in his career?
Well, that's very, I mean, Boris nailed it too. What you were just talking about is 100% correct. I mean, Danny was, had played, and he was the man here, and he was doing all the playing. And Boris, he thought, he has so much talent, and he's a super goalkeeper, and so super enough that they, as a pool player for the MSL, the MLS, that he was. That's, you got to be quality to be able to be playing at that status. So he did think when he should have been maybe playing a little bit more. But Danny was playing. He was doing such a good job that Boris had to wait his turn. And that kind of could get frustrating at times. Danny left to go to Coma. Boris came in and started as the starting goalkeeper, and he played wonderfully. I mean, he was a different guy from the first to the second year that we worked with him. He's he played. He has a little different style than Danny, but both are very effective, which are good. Matter of fact, I personally think that between Danny and Boris and another goalkeeper they had in San Diego, Chris Toth. Those are three and William Benzo. Those are the best goalkeepers in the league. I mean, and they've done such a good job. But back to Boris on that. He's a big guy, and he's very intelligent about the game. He just needed to learn a little bit more of the nuances that Danny could help him, about. My relationship with him I thought was very, very good. I really liked the guy a lot. He was a good dad. He, was looking after his kids all the time. And so he worked hard. And he got better and better, and he had more confidence in himself. More games he played, he was more confident and was able to perform better. And then he went to San Diego. We were sorry to see him to leave here, but he went to a great franchise there and has done a tremendous knock-up job there. So he's. He was a pleasure to coach, and I consider him a good friend and one that is getting better and better all the time, and hopefully we'll continue to do that.
My last question for you, Alan, is kind of looking forward a little bit, because you have unique perspective in that you got to see the MISL when it was in its absolute infancy rise to its absolute peak. Struggle, teams fold, teams change, leagues fold, leagues change, indoor soccer drops, MLS rises. Now we have so many people who are addicted to the international game. We have the ability for fans in the United States to watch almost every EPL game live, to watch all the games from Italy and Spain live, really around the world, in addition to MLS having risen to a level of success. And as such, indoor soccer finds itself struggling to maintain its market share, so to speak, within the sport, and to keep the interest of fans. How do you view the sport as a guy who is able to take a step back? You've been a player, you've been a coach. How do you compare where the sport can go now, and what advice would you have for MASL?
Well, the advice I have with them would be to, basically try to hang on. The indoor game is a very, very, very exciting game. I mean, I absolutely love it. I mean, as I mentioned before, I like the outdoor game, really like the outdoor game, but I love the indoor game. And the indoor game is so exciting that I don't think it can fail. I just think it's a matter of hopefully. The key to everything with the MASL right now is to try to get good ownership. And, we have a few, without knocking anybody or anything, we have a few good owners of the league. And I would like to see a lot more. I'd like to see, a few more Phils of the world to come in and take over franchises and work in that respect. It's such an exciting game that I see a future for it, but it's what is it going to ever get back to the old days? That's going to be tough because really for a lot of different reasons. But I think that the MASL can succeed, and if we can get a key deal is obviously with a television package, but with YouTube and different things, you get to see some of the games. So it's okay, but it'd be nice if you get a national cable package or something that would be very good at it.
I think you nailed it though, Alan. I think you need 16 to 20 rock solid owners. And if you have 16 to 20 rock solid owners, then everybody is going to start competing with one another. Then that is going to be great for the players. That allows for player movement. Right now, there's a lot of players. There's exceptions to this, of course, but there's a lot of players who just play in a town, and they are you are a local and you play on your local team, as opposed to, hey, I'm a free agent and I'm going to move from here to there, like you did, many times throughout your career. So I'd love to see that. I'd love to see an ownership base that was truly committed to investing in the sport and raising the floor of the sport, because that's the one thing that and I want to just say explicitly that the MASL has gotten so much better from 2014 to today in this respect, in terms of not having a few teams that you don't want to bring out in front of the curtain for everybody to see. You know what I'm saying? You've got a handful of teams that you want everyone to see, and then you have a handful of teams you're like, let me put them behind the curtain a little bit. And the more that we raise that floor so that everyone's on the same playing field, and that whether you are in Tacoma, Milwaukee, Dallas, Florida, etc., that everyone has kind of a similar shot at having a similar roster. I think that's when you can then have that level that would appeal to a regional sports network, that would appeal to some of the national sports networks that occur. I'd love to see, personally, a lot more cross pollination with USL Championship. Because while I don't think it's going to be very easy to get MLS players onto MASL rosters, I think getting USLC players onto MASL rosters, it already happens. It already happens with guys like Tony Walls, etc. And I'd love to see that. We have a new USL club in our town, the San Diego Loyal, and I'd love to see that type of cross-pollination, which is what you guys had, where you played outdoor in the summer and then you played indoor in the winter.
No question about it. That would be absolutely unbelievable. And you mentioned the USL. I mean, that would be a nice fit if they could work something there. But it has to get to a point where the players actually go ahead and make it a full-time job for them, and not having, like, all our players, they all have other jobs that they train and they go elsewhere to play to their job. It has to be where they can finally get, and that's a financial end of it, where they can be full-time professionals instead of basically, they don't want, they're still professionals, but they're basically part-time professionals nowadays.
Right. An excellent point. Well, Alan, man, we covered it all.
Yep. I appreciate it, man.
We took it from the 70s to 2020 and everywhere in between. I really love this interview. I can already speak for our soccer fans who can't speak right now to say thank you so much. This was an amazing, a very worthy addition to our Legend series. Thank you for your time and your patience as well.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I have always loved San Diego and soccer in particular. So thank you for allowing me to be on your show. I enjoyed it.
Well, I can't wait for a post-pandemic, post-vaccine time where I'll be back traveling with the club, and hopefully next time I'm in your neck of the woods, we'll make sure to get together and tip a couple back. Alan, thanks again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, buddy.
For Alan Mayer, I'm Craig Elston. Thank you for tuning into our Legend series. We've got lots more to come in future weeks. But until then, thank you for listening to Soccer's Overtime. Talk to you next time. There it is, buddy.
Roll to the right point. Jump to the top of the box. Mayer goes up high and brings it down. What a spectacular grab by Alan Mayer as he sacrifices his body to get that ball. Now the Blast steal it again in midfield. Soccer's having trouble moving it into the Blast zone. Ercoli a drive. Mayer collects it.
Alan Mayer just superb. Just absolutely, like you say, sacrificing arm and leg.